Hi.
Hello again. Genesis chapter 27. We are beginning the story now of the deception of Isaac by his wife and his son.
Now it came to pass, when Isaac was old and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau his older son and said to him, "My son." And he answered him, "Here I am." Then he said, "Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, and that my soul may bless you before I die." Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt game, and to bring it. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob her son, saying, "Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau your brother, saying, 'Bring me game, and make savory food for me, that I may eat it and bless you in the presence of the Lord, before my death.' Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock, and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and that he may bless you before his death."
But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon myself, and not a blessing." His mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice, and go, bring them to me." So he went and took them, and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared delicious food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. Well, we've already seen in the prior chapter that none of the members of the family make an immediately good impression. We're told, on the one hand, that Jacob is a quiet man and his brother is outgoing and outside. And we're told that Isaac seems to be always bending his preference to Esau for the fact that he gets his appetites satisfied by means of Esau. So neither Esau, because of his birthright decision, nor Isaac, because of his leaning towards one son and favoring one son over the other, make a good impression. And now, from the just reading of the text, Rebekah and Jacob make a decidedly unfavorable impression.
Yeah. Well, this is where you see he gets this name connotation of a deceiver from this act.
Supplanter.
Yeah. So I think what's particularly you dislike when you hear him say, not, "Mother, that's deceiving. I can't do that." He doesn't do that. He says, "What if I get caught?" So he seems only worried about whether or not he'll be caught and not get the promise. That seems to be more heavy on his mind than the fact that he's being deceitful and dishonoring his father by this action.
And within the pattern of the whole book of Genesis, again, context, broader context, there's a pattern that holds not just in Genesis, but right through the entire Old Testament, which is that God is with you, and God will work out his covenant blessings and promises in his way. But if you are impatient and try to do it your way, as we saw with Abraham and already, you bring disaster upon yourself and your family. The promises aren't canceled because of that. They're unilateral, as we've said before. But you can bring in terrible things upon yourself and your family by getting ahead of God and not waiting patiently in faith.
I think part of the problem is we somehow think God needs us to fulfill his promise. He doesn't need us to get his will done.
So
His will would have been done if they hadn't made this little plot.
Yeah, he doesn't need you to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And this terrible line, verse 13, his mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me."
Mm-hmm.
And we know how that worked out. When the decision is made and carried through, Jacob flees for his life to Haran and ends up spending 20 years there. And he never sees his mother again, and she doesn't see him, therefore.
Yeah.
So do they realize what the consequences of this bad choice will be?
Yeah, the harm it's going to do to both of them.
So
he faces a lot of hardships.
Yes, he does.
When he leaves,
and
too.
he makes bad choices which rebound to hurt his family too. So that pattern, Abraham does it, Rebekah and Jacob here, Jacob later for sure in his family relationships.
It's certainly
and then the brothers, and then throughout the entire Old Testament, David too. David is given unconditional promises that attach to his family and offspring. But on the other hand, if he sins, he brings disaster.
So I think that you find it's a textbook for us. Lessons that you could learn ahead of time and not make those terrible decisions when you're parenting, when you're, bringing new generations in. They will copy what they see their parents doing. So it's a lesson, a negative thing, but it's a lesson for us.
So the Bible is there to give us those negative lessons as well as positive. The rest of the history of Jacob and the family proves that these choices were never God's choices; they were yours. Mm-hmm. Not really choices that you made in faith, but rather in haste.
Yeah, thinking
often for selfish purposes.
Yeah, and thinking you're necessary.
Yeah.
You're elevating yourself more than elevating God.
So what does the Watchtower do with
Yeah.
Rebekah and Jacob here?
Okay, we'll start with Jacob. They make this comment in the aid book on page 861. This was not a case of malicious misrepresentation. Legally, he had bought the birthright and was therefore representing or taking the place of his brother, whom his father, suffering from failing eyesight, evidently thought still held the birthright. So it's a lot of assumptions there, and also justifying.
Malicious misrepresentation. Isn't that a fancy way of saying lying?
Yeah.
What is he doing here? He's dishonoring his father, and she, Rebekah, is dishonoring the principle of headship. And they justify it.
Yeah.
So what do they say about Rebekah?
Rebekah, on page 1377 of the aid book, it says, when Isaac was preparing to bless Esau, his firstborn, apparently being ignorant that Esau had sold his birthright to his brother, Rebekah took immediate steps to secure the desired blessing for Jacob, whom she dearly loved. Whether Rebekah knew of Jacob's legal right to the birthright through the purchase is not stated. Well, it didn't state that the father didn't know either. But anyways. But she was well aware of what Jehovah had told her, namely that the older would serve the younger. Rebekah was therefore duly authorized to see that Jacob secured for himself his father's blessing. The success of the plan was evidence of divine direction in the matter.
The success of the plan? You never saw each other again.
Yeah.
This is just...
It's sin is okay if it succeeds. I mean, that's awful.
To bring about God's plan, sin is justified, is what it amounts to.
Yeah.
Sin. Breaking
Duly
God's laws
authorized.
is duly authorized. Well, pretty sad.
It is. It's.
So here's a good example of taking out of context, i.e. context later, the results in Jacob's own family, and Rebekah, what happens to her in consequence of this choice. And the greater context of Genesis, that we've already seen that Abraham did something similar twice, and what results came from that.
And they do the same thing with the story of Abraham. I think we looked it up then too.
Yeah.
They justify the bad deeds of those in the Bible that are God's people. Yeah, they have a relationship with God, But they're not perfect people. And so when they see a mistake, they have to justify it.
Yes, they do. What do they call that? Even today they call it, we're deceiving the authorities in the governments, they call it theocratic warfare.
Yeah.
So if it's for the purpose of theocratic warfare, then it's okay to break Bible principles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and they show that in their own deeds.
So what do Christendom's sound teachers do with this passage? Do they feel any need to justify Rebekah and Jacob?
This is what Kidner says about Jacob. He says Esau had traded away the firstborn's blessing. This makes all four participants in the present scene almost equally at fault. Isaac, whether he knew of the sale or not, knew God's birth oracle of chapter 25, verse 23. Yet he set himself to use God's power to thwart it. This is the outlook of magic, not religion. Esau, in agreeing to the plan, broke his own oath of 25:33, chapter 25, verse 33. Rebekah and Jacob, with a just cause, made no approach to God or man, no gesture of faith or love, and reaped the appropriate fruit of hatred.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he doesn't justify any of them.
Breaking the fifth commandment and violating the principle of headship are very serious biblically, but you wouldn't even know they were involved in this according to the Watchtower's way of looking at it.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have Barnhouse too.
Barnhouse, I think he's talking about Rebekah. He says Rebekah was smother love. She was fattening her own pride on the success of her favorite son. Her ruse resulted in 20 years of exile for Jacob, amid peril and trouble, for which his sheltered life at Rebekah's side had not prepared him. Mm-hmm.
And here's Alfred Edersheim in his Bible history, this is the first of 3 volumes, by the way. If Isaac, Rebekah, and Jacob had been each wrong in their share in the transaction, Esau deserves at least equal blame. Not to speak of his previous knowledge of the will of God on this point, he disguised from his brother Jacob that he was about to obtain from his father's favor that which he had actually sold to Jacob. So Edersheim wants to distribute all the blame. And I think that's that's just a flat reading of the text.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not perfect, just like people in the church aren't perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Links. I think you've decided to put in Sins of the Fathers.
Yes, it's the first of a series of 3 that you did on the Sins of the Fathers. So I think it talks about Abraham, Sarah, and Jacob, and Isaac and Rebekah.
Yeah, and the others also take up the story of Jacob later.
Yeah, and then David later too.
3, and it's not just me though, right? It was you too.
Oh, was I in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's 3. Yeah.
See you soon.
Bye.